Thank you all so much for coming and welcome to our Wales-wide Fuel Poverty Forum. I'm just going to start sharing my slides for you all and then we shall get going. Fantastic. I hope you can see all those okay. So as I say, thank you very much for coming and welcome to our Fuel Poverty Forum, kindly sponsored today by Wales and West Utilities. And we are absolutely delighted to see you all. Fuel poverty has a profound negative impact, as we all know, on people's lives and communities, and we all share a common interest in wanting to ensure that everybody in Wales can afford to keep their homes warm, dry and safe. And we're really keen to continue to provide platforms for us all to come together and promote dialogue and discussion on a whole range of fuel poverty related issues. And as we did in November, sometimes this will directly involve in helping shape advocacy and examining policy and breaking out into small groups to share views and ideas. And other times, more like today, the focus will be on providing opportunity for you to hear about recent developments and space for you to ask questions. Either way, we're really keen for this session to be as interactive as possible over Zoom with potentially 150 odd people. So today we'll be focusing the session in two halves. Firstly, on some key recent policy updates, and secondly, on some practical new Wales-wide initiatives that are now underway. You should all hopefully have had a copy of the agenda as part of the joining instructions, but there's a copy on the slide as well here. You'll hear from Nigel at Wales and West Utilities about their work programme and plans coming forward. We'll hear from Smart Energy GB and Smart Meter Rollout. We'll hear about the new Welsh Government's Energy Advice and Support Services pilot that's being led by Warm Wales, the new 70+ Cymru programme and project led by Care and Repair Cymru, as well as some updates about some wider work that we're involved in too. So each speaker will allow time for Q&A as part of their presentation, which we'll do our best to chair. You can ask questions via the chat function, as the introductory video that Brian kindly put together noted, but you're also very welcome to raise your virtual hand. And we'll try to take as many questions as we can. Please don't physically raise your hand because it is impossible for us to see all of that, but there is an option for you to kind of raise the yellow emoji. If you can do that, that I'm very happy. For those that are unfamiliar with where that is, you should have a kind of toolbar on Zoom, and depending on the version that you've got, I understand that you either click participants and then you should see an option to raise a virtual hand, or you may have a reactions one where you can put the hand in there also, but any problems, pop it in the chat, one of my colleagues will explain. But essentially, we didn't want this to be a webinar where you could only see the speakers and nobody else, and the only way for you to interact was via the chat function. So we wanted to run it as a meeting for you to be able to all see one another if you want to have your videos on, and also to give you the opportunity to ask questions verbally. But it is quite unusual to try to do this on Zoom with so many people, so we'll have to just see how that goes as it goes through. A couple of key housekeeping points just to pick up from the video, and then I'll hand over to a rather pale yet charming red-haired fellow who will take us through some policy updates before we move on through the agenda. So firstly, this session will be recorded, and that's for our internal purposes only. So please do leave your video on if you're happy to, but feel free to mute that video if you prefer. And secondly, in case I forget later, we will pause for a 5-minute comfort break in the middle, but please don't leave Zoom. Just mute your video, mute your audio, go and grab a coffee, and then come back and we'll get going for the second half. So without further ado, just to take you through a bit of a policy update from ourselves, just to help set the scene and provide context. It'll come as no surprise to many of you that the main fuel poverty related news in Wales is that on the 2nd of March, the Welsh Government published its new fuel poverty plan to tackle fuel poverty in Wales, 2021 through to 2035. And this follows, as it says on the slide there, a 3-month consultation during which we ran 3 focus workshops with the Welsh Government in partnership with them. And thank you all again for those that came in November to those to share and discuss and engage and share your views. It also follows the Audit Wales Landscape Review from 2019 and the Climate Change, Environment and Rural Affairs Committee's inquiry into fuel poverty that made 21 recommendations in the April of 2020, and in my opinion at least was quite a cross-party catalyst in getting the strategy out into this point and focusing minds. Wales has been in need of a new, comprehensive, ambitious framework to tackle fuel poverty for some time. And I understand that the Welsh Government received 57 individual responses to that consultation, more than it did so previously. And I really hope that this now provides opportunity for us to reinvigorate action to tackle fuel poverty in Wales, that common interest that we all share and can gather around. By its own admission, Welsh Government has made minor amends to the draft proposals that were part of that consultation process. So I'll run through some of the key aspects of the new plan, reflecting a little on our response, and then I want to cover off a couple of key broader aspects of policy as well. So first of all, Welsh Government, as part of the plan, has noted that it will take action across 4 key policy goals within its control. Firstly, to proactively identify people in or at risk of fuel poverty, and to ensure Welsh Government support is going to benefit those in need it most. Secondly, to prioritise and protect, starting with a worst first principle, to ensure people in the most need receive the most appropriate support so they can always continue to heat their homes. Thirdly, to decarbonise, using the principle of fabric first, to improve the thermal and energy efficiency of properties in the owner-occupied and private rented sector occupied by low-income homes, reducing their energy bills and reducing their carbon emissions. And fourthly, to use its influence to ensure that the UK government, the energy regulator, the energy industry more broadly, meet the needs of people living in Wales. And it's within those 4 policy goals that the rest of the plan is set, and it now makes explicit reference, which is one of the changes that they made from the consultation, to those principles of fabric first and worst first, something that we really welcome, something that we and others, including the Fuel Poverty Coalition Cymru, had called for, and something ultimately that we would like to see reflected throughout the strategy in the years to come in its targets and subsequent actions. So they're the 4 policy goals, the overarching goals. But within that, there are now 3 non-statutory targets to be achieved by 2035. So to put it another way, Welsh Government's long-term ambition is that by 2035, no households are estimated to be living in severe or persistent fuel poverty, as far as reasonably practicable, bearing in mind that those who are considered to be in fuel poverty are measured by needing to spend more than 10% of their income to adequately heat their home. So severe fuel poverty is those that need to spend more than 20%. And persistent fuel poverty is measured as those who would be in regular fuel poverty, if you like, as per the 10% definition for 2 out of the last 3 years. And so that first target is about eradicating, essentially, as far as reasonably practical, those in severe fuel poverty and those who have been in fuel poverty for 2 out of the preceding 3 years. That's the first target. Second target, that no more than 5% of households otherwise are estimated to be living in fuel poverty at any one time, as per the 10% metric. And then finally, that the number of households at risk of falling into fuel poverty, which tends to be those on the cusp of falling into fuel poverty, those that would need to spend between 8 and 10% of their income, would be more than halved based on the 2018 estimate. And based in 2018, I think about 145,000 households or so were estimated to be at risk of fuel poverty. There are, however, still no interim targets or milestones against which progress can be measured. This is something that we've noted is a key omission in our opinion, and the Welsh Government is currently undertaking further research into potential interim targets to be introduced as part of their first periodic review of the plan, something we would actually like to see, if at all possible, introduced before this coming winter. The Welsh Government noted in its consultation outcome report essentially that while respondents have made a compelling case for interim targets, to do so at that time would be highly speculative, given particularly the context surrounding the pandemic and the uncertainty. But be that as it may, it makes them all the more important too. And so we'll continue to work with government on that and push that along. But these are the 3 non-statutory targets that are all to be achieved by 2035. And then underneath those sit the 10 short-term priority actions that Welsh Government wish to take as a first step between 2021 and 2023, covering 4 key areas in that first 2 years. We've got the Warm Homes programme, we've got the Energy Advice and Support Services, which actually a pilot is underway currently, which we'll hear from Joanna Seymour and Melia Thomas a bit more about later. We've got monitoring, evaluation and reporting, and we've also got working with partners. And in summary, A couple of those actions relate to the Warm Homes Programme, the first of which is essentially to continue Nest and Arbed, which is ongoing currently. And the second is that from this summer, the Welsh Government plan to consult on the future of those schemes, the future iteration of the Warm Homes Programme, and implement then any changes for that for April 2023 onwards. Similarly, we've got the Energy Advice and Support Services pilot underway, and Welsh Government plan to consult based on that pilot and then implement those changes from April 2023 also. And as part of this section, they also note that they wish to publish and keep under review a plan to improve winter or cold weather resilience, which is very welcome also. As part of its monitoring and evaluation reporting, the Welsh Government are also due to kickstart an advisory board on fuel poverty beginning next month. They promise to publish Welsh domestic energy data annually, which would be very welcome indeed, beginning in July 2022. And it will also review the plan and its progress against the targets and the actions every 2 years biennially, including new fuel poverty estimates every 2 years, the first of which is planned for July 2022. And finally, throughout all of this process, it will continue to work with its partners to do numerous things, one of which would be to encourage a reduction in the installation of prepayment meters when they're installed to recover fuel debt, when they're installed to recover arrears, which is ongoing, to support the smart meter rollout, which you're going to hear a bit more about from Fleer later on, as well as to support the UK government with wider initiatives that relate to Wales, like eco or warm home discount, which actually I will touch on a little bit later too. So in terms of next steps, we've got the advisory board inaugural meeting coming in June. And I understand one of the first things that will consider is the cold weather resilience plan and potentially interim targets also. And obviously coming up in the next few months, I suspect we will see a consultation. Steve may disagree with me here, and I think he's on the call, but I understand that current plans are to see a consultation on the future iteration of the Warm Homes Programme and potentially energy advice and support services as well. We, as you will all know, would like to see that expanded to support those on lower incomes, not necessarily on means tested benefits, and to specify in particular how it intends to enhance the scale of resources required to meet the targets and deliver for households living in rural areas. I understand too, the options based on the learning of the optimised retrofit programme will play into this, as well as recommendations made by the Climate Change Committee. So it can seek to maximise progress against a number of different objectives. And of course, we need to be mindful that the benefits achievable through housing decarbonisation must not be at the expense of lower income households. Rather, it must be an opportunity to make the lives better for them as well. So lots to come and lots underway. So they are the kind of 10 key actions of the plan. I'm happy to take kind of questions on those. And I know a few Welsh Government officials are on this call as well. Following the launch of the consultation, and following calls from the Fuel Poverty Coalition and partners, you may also have seen that the Welsh Government, as part of its programme of work for over the last winter, agreed to extend under the Discretionary Assistance Fund emergency assistance payments as part of a winter trial to cover the cost of oil or LPG for those off-grid reliant on oil or LPG to heat their homes that found themselves in significant hardship. Many of you will know that the Discretionary Assistance Fund provides emergency top-up payments for gas and electricity prepayment meter users, and has done so for some time. But the Welsh Government also ran a trial over December through to March, or kind of in earnest January through to March, to offer assistance to those on oil or LPG, which you can see on the screen there. That trial, for those that were aware, has now closed. My understanding is that for those that helped people apply, it was a very largely positive experience, which is really very welcome. And I think 96 of the 159 applications that were received were awarded, kind of 72 for oil, 24 for LPG, totaling the figures that you see on the screen there. And this is something that we really would like to see continue. We'd love to see that all kind of relevant and key organisations supporting low income and fuel poor households are made aware of that. And ultimately, if it is something that can continue, something that perhaps would run for much longer, so all year round, or if not all year round, at least say for 6 months, October through to March, rather than just kind of the winter period, because of course cold weather and that type of hardship doesn't just occur at that time of the year. But we'll keep you posted as we learn more, but just wanted to make sure you were all fully aware that that trial and pilot has now come to a close, as it was intended to do. The other big news, obviously, in Wales recently, which I'm sure you're all very familiar with, is that we now have, following the Senedd elections, a new Welsh Labour government. And we will wait on more news as things develop. But as you may have seen, the Welsh Government did a significant reshuffle in its cabinet recently, perhaps more significant than perhaps many were expecting. And Leslie Griffiths, who was formerly the Minister for Rural Energy, Environment and Rural Affairs, remains, but she is the Minister for Rural Affairs and North Wales now. Energy and environment are no longer part of her portfolio. Rather, Julie James, previously the Minister for Housing and Local Government, is now the Minister for Climate Change, and Lee Waters is her deputy. And energy and housing, as I understand it, fit within this, alongside transport and planning and National Resources Wales and biodiversity and the National Forest and the National Parks and digital also. And Jane Hutt, who I think was previously Chief Whip, has been created a new post of Minister for Social Justice. So we'll need to wait on more info as we get it, but Welsh Labour's manifesto, from my understanding, didn't offer any indication of its forthcoming plans to improve energy efficiency levels or end fuel poverty. I think it made reference to the Warm Homes programme in terms of its current impact, but we do obviously have this new Tackling Fuel Poverty plan from the Welsh Government, which was published, as I say, on the 2nd of March ahead of those elections, and we'll need to wait on confirmation on a full list of responsibilities of the Cabinet till we know exactly where fuel poverty and energy and everything else sits within that, and happy to keep you all updated as we go through. And then finally, as part of the kind of context update from me, before we move on throughout the agenda, just a couple of other broader updates regarding the energy market more generally. Firstly, Warm Home Discount, good news. As you probably know, the Warm Home Discount supports about 80,000 households in Wales with automatic payments of £140 as part of the core group, but many thousands more via the broader group. And as many of you might remember, one of our big campaigns over the last 18 months or so has been to call for an extension and an expansion of the Warm Home Discount Scheme, which was otherwise due to end in March that's just passed. A call that many of you signed along with the Welsh Government, and thanks again to all that did. And that culminated in a report that we released with Fair by Design that you can see on the right-hand side, and something I discussed actually at the last Fuel Poverty Forum. But good news, it has been extended. The UK government's energy white paper that was released in December confirmed that, and the regulations, as I understand it, have now passed through the House of Commons and are on their way to the Lords. So this year, the scheme will broadly be unchanged. There will be a Warm Home Discount. It's the same core and the same broader groups and the same payment of £140. But the Energy White Paper also confirmed UK government's intention to expand the scheme from 2022 to 2026. We'll get further details in due course, but so far, what we know is that it will run to 2026. The payment is due to rise from £140 to £150. And the size of the pot, the overall scheme envelope, is to increase to £475 million a year, up from £350 million that it was this year, which should mean that an extra 750,000 households will receive that rebate. So that's very welcome news. And in addition, UK government and BEIS are minded to aim to improve the way it's targeted, so that the broader group are not then reliant on having to apply themselves in order to receive it, as they currently have to do every year, and then it normally leaves you with quite a short window in order to apply within before you hit the cutoff or the threshold, and then you may miss out. So that would be very welcome news indeed if that comes through. So again, thank you all for your help and support in that process, and just wanted to bring you up to speed there. And then finally, as it's relatively recent, some of you should also be familiar with the fact that the energy price cap rose in April. So this limits the unit cost of gas and electricity, with standing charges taken into account for those on standard, variable or default tariffs, credit and prepay. It's not a cap, importantly, on customers' energy bills, which still, of course, depends on the amount you use on your consumption. So as another colleague used to say, this is not all you can eat energy for £1,000. It limits the unit price that you're paying, and Ofgem review this every 6 months, and it's increased from the 1st of April, which will affect approximately 15 million customers across Great Britain. So it could mean that things are about to get tougher, sadly, and put more pressure, obviously, on vulnerable households in cold and damp homes. It rose £96 on average to £1,138 for typical default tariff customers, and £87 for typical prepayment meter customers. Principally, as you may have heard in the news over that period of time, This is due to a rise in wholesale energy prices, and it's also £23 for suppliers for credit meter customers on default tariffs to kind of cover anticipated costs of unpaid bills for those struggling to pay due to the impact of COVID. As we know, many have fallen behind as a result of that. So I think here part of the advice has to be switch to save if you can, but not every household, as we all know, are always freely able to. Some households face significant barriers to being able to switch, and help is available, but from our perspective, more protection is needed, especially for those that are most vulnerable and for prepayment meter users as well. And happy to take questions on some of that if that's useful. But they're the main updates from me. As I say, time to take some questions, and then we'll move through the agenda. So I'll just work out how to stop sharing my slides, and then colleagues will assist in looking through questions for you as well. Over to you, Sarah.
Hi, Ben. I think it looks like we have a question from William Jones from Ceredigion. William, if you'd like to join, you can. You should be able to ask your question.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for the really interesting presentation, Ben. I just wanted to make an observation, really, and it was about the figures that you showed at the end for the figures that Ofgem use in the calculation for the tariff. And it's just working in a rural area, quite often the actual cost that people face can be at least double that, and possibly 2.5 times that. So I think it's really important that I appreciate the fact that we Ofgem look at those figures, but that's generally speaking where people have mains gas. But it's really important to remember that there are so many people in Wales who are paying significantly more than that because of the type of conditions, the type of heating that they have. The second point I'd just like to make a comment about, and I've had a bit of a chat whilst you were in the chat room facility whilst you were talking, Ben, is just to back up what you were saying about the importance of the DAF for oil and for LPG. It was extremely useful and very welcome to lots of our clients. It's something that would be fantastic if it can be extended, as you say, as a permanent thing, or alternatively, if it was just for, as you also suggested, for that 6 months of the year during the winter period, as part maybe of the winter resilience plan that our colleagues in Welsh Government are looking at. Thank you very much.
My pleasure, and thank you for your support in helping assist with the scheme as well. Thanks, William. Does anybody else have any other questions?
Can't spot any, Ben, and I think all the ones in the chat have been answered, so we're potentially good to go.
Fantastic. All right. Well, it's my pleasure then to welcome Nigel Winnan from Wales and West Utilities, who have kindly supported the event today. Nigel is the Customer and Social Obligation Strategy Manager there, and is going to talk through some of WWU's current work programme and future plans for us.
Good afternoon, everybody. I think I've got some slides that Mike is going to kindly share. Just like to say, in my role as Head of Customer Service and Social Obligations, I've been probably involved with fuel poverty and initiatives to try and combat it for the last 12 years, working closely with the NEA. We've supported the Wales conference a few years back, and it's been a shame that we haven't been able to meet up face to face for a couple of years, but great to see so many people attending today, and that we've got the opportunity to support today as well. Obviously, the COVID-19 situation has impacted a lot of the hard work and progress that's been made over the last few years. But I just wanted to take a few minutes really to, one, thank you for all your hard work and look forward to working with you all in the future. But just give a quick background into the roles of not just Wales and West Utilities, but the other gas networks across the UK in doing its bit to tackle fuel poverty, particularly in Wales. So next slide, please, Mike. I would imagine a lot of you have probably either come to our stakeholder conferences or listened to me in the past, but for those of you who don't know who we are, Wales West Utilities, we own and operate the gas network across Wales and the southwest of England. We supply about 2.5 million homes and businesses, and a number of key services we provide. So we provide the emergency service, we connect new homes, so about 11,000 or so a year, that's new builds and existing. About 70,000 gas emergencies attended every year. And also we maintain about 35,000 kilometres of pipe, with about 2 million a week being invested at the moment, replacing old cast iron mains, making them ready for the future so we can transport green gas, including hydrogen. One thing we don't do, we don't bill customers. We haven't got that direct relationship with customers that we send them a bill every month, or have got that direct communication, and we don't fit or maintain appliances. So we're very much move the pipe around, the gas around safely up to people's homes. But our stakeholders have told us that making sure we play our part in tackling fuel poverty is probably our biggest priority in dealing with priority customers at the moment. My maths wasn't very good when I did this, unfortunately. 12% of our homes that we supply being in fuel poverty is more like 280,000 homes. But whichever way you slice and dice it, it's a huge problem. And that's the existing gas users. And we want to do things for homes that are off the gas network and those existing users as well. So I'm just going to run through a couple of initiatives that we've agreed funding with our regulator Ofgem that will take us through the next 5-year period. So next slide, please, Mike. Thank you very much. Firstly, just want to mention the Fuel Poor Network Extension Scheme. So this has actually been up and running now since 2009. We did our first ever project back in 2009 in Bridgend with Colin Jones coming across at the time to celebrate that. This provides funding for eligible homes for first-time gas connections. So we can actually bring just over £2,500 plus VAT towards that first-time gas connection to eligible homes. It links up with other schemes such as ECO, Nest and RBED that bring in the funding for the first-time gas central heating and the other measures. So we can't just speculatively put gas into a property to someone wants it to increase the value of their property. We do need to link up with the heating as well. I'm sure that there'll be a future conference. I think Ben's planning something around sort of net zero and sustainability, but we see, and most of our stakeholders agree, that gas is still a good solution, particularly for those most inefficient homes. And we are continuing to replace our gas network at the moment. We're already putting in enough biomethane to supply about 200,000 homes per annum. And there's some well-progressed trials now in looking at generating hydrogen and blending that into the natural gas network. And that is something that's going to come to fruition probably within 5 years. You'll start to see that being introduced with potentially some full hydrogen networks as we go into the early 2030s. The scheme's been really successful. Last 10 years, we have supported connections to 9,500 homes across Wales. And Wales punched above its weight here, really. That's about 50% of the total that we've done. And I think it shows the sort of drive and commitment of the local authorities within Wales and the benefits of having the devolved government schemes, the Nest and the RBED. And the good news is, say, working with Ofgem, we've managed to secure funding for up to another 7,870 connections over the next 5 years. That, of course, is very much dependent on policy being there to support the heating system. So we are very engaged in the debates around what ECO, Nest and RBED look like into the future as well. Right, so that's how we look to support homes in getting them onto gas connections where it's the best option for them, and that should continue. If I move on to the next slide, Mike, this is more about how we look to, just as really just emphasising the success we've had. You can see the numbers there by sort of groups of areas. You can see Flintshire Council being hugely proactive, has a sort of Cardiff, Newport, some real good work in the Swansea area as well. And if you compare that to places like Bristol, you can see the impact that we've had, sort of 3 times the number of connections in Flintshire than we've done across that whole Bristol area. Sorry, Mike, next slide. So the Healthy Homes, Healthy People project is something that we've effectively trialled for 3 years now with Warm Wales. And what this looks to do is to use mapping. So we bring in sort of demographic data along with data about the EPC rating of the property. And we work with local authorities, health boards, health professionals to identify the homes that we really need to target. So this isn't just having a call line that people need to pick up the courage to pick up and contact. This is a proactive approach of going into areas knocking on doors, communicating with people, and ideally, providing that face-to-face support, actually seeing someone in their home, seeing how they live, seeing how they interact with their energy, and then putting a package of measures together to really help make a change in their lives. So this isn't just about signposting. And one thing I've been really keen on with Warm Wales is that they follow things through and can demonstrate that things have happened, that those customers have seen a change in their the quality of their life. Say 3 years worth of work, over 2,500 homes in Wales have been supported, and they have accessed £2.2 million of unclaimed benefits from tariff switches, and also energy efficiency measures. So this is linking up with the RBED scheme, other local authority schemes. And in addition, the advantage of working with the local authority is we've also pulled in other benefits for homes, such as being able to get some home adaptations done, perhaps a stair lift put in or a ramp, to allow people freedom of movement as well. Benefits from this, obviously, we're lifting people out of fuel poverty, improvements to health and well-being, all the key drivers around these interventions with homes. And when we put this into a social return investment model, and we look at a sort of 5-year period, every pound that we put into this shows a benefit of £10 to the individual and society. So a great project, and that has enabled us to formally put this out for tender. Pleased to announce that Warm Wales are going to be able to continue with this for us. So we've allocated £300,000 of funding per annum for the next 2 years. To continue the work in Wales, but also to step up what we're doing in the southwest of England as well, and also tweak the scheme to align to policy and post-COVID needs as well. So really positive, and looking forward to a conversation with Jonathan and Joanne Seymour in the next couple of days on making this, getting this back underway. Finally, just to mention some of the other stuff that we're doing as well. If Mike just goes to the final slide for me. We're very conscious that gas isn't the only issue for people. So when we do the work such as Healthy Homes, Healthy People, we are looking across electricity and water as well. I've got a great project that we're working on at the moment in the Bristol area with all the utilities in that area, including Bristol Waste and Wessex Water, who deal with the sewage, in trying to understand a bit more about customers' behaviour in terms to consuming resources and how they dispose of their waste as well. Very keen that we keep on pushing the priority service register. The more we can get people onto these registers, the easier it is to identify them, support them during their works, and also to target our campaigns at those people in those areas. And carbon monoxide as well. Whilst we've got the engagement with someone, we are issuing out free carbon monoxide monitors to the most at-risk homes, and through some quick education and a bit of a questionnaire, raising their awareness about the risks of carbon monoxide. We're fitting locking cooker valves, those people with dementia, and that allows them to carry on having some independence in their home, be able to use the cooker safely. So a carer can unlock the cooker, the person can cook themselves a meal, and then gets locked off again safely when they leave. So not massive numbers, but we're putting in about 100 or so a year at the moment. And something might be of interest to you all, if you keep an eye on our website, we are allocating some money out of a pot that we've got from Ofgem, and we are going to be keen to hear from third parties to suggest schemes on how we can work together across Wales and the southwest that we can jointly benefit. So I'll cascade some information through the NEA once we've got that up and running. So that's my words of wisdom. Is there anything on the chat? Any questions?
Thanks, Nigel. Just a couple to pick up from the chat. So Richard Mann has said, there's a real challenge in balancing affordable energy and decarbonisation. Burning most gases, including methane, produces CO2. Isn't the driver to move towards true renewable energy and understanding how we can do this in an affordable way?
Yeah, look, we recognise that the gas industry's got some challenges, but we also recognise that there can be huge disruption to homes, and not all homes are suitable to just have a heat pump put in. If you look at my end of terrace property in Cardiff, I'd probably have to spend an awful lot of money on external wall insulation and then on the heat pump to make it worthwhile me switching over and getting the benefits from it. By putting biomethane in and hydrogen, we've also looked at hybrid heating systems as well. We can reduce the carbon impact of our network quite significantly. We certainly accept that new build properties will be moving over to renewable sources soon. but the gas network's certainly got a huge part to play, and particularly the amount of flexibility you've got in there and be able to store energy during those really cold winter periods.
Nigel, we've also got a couple of questions around hydrogen. So, Richard Jones Abbas has said, in your view, when and where should we be pushing hydrogen-ready boilers? And William Jones has asked, will hydrogen be more expensive than mains gas?
Lots of trials going on at the moment. Certainly the boiler manufacturers are very well progressed with hydrogen boilers. There are some proper operational trials going on around the country at the moment where they've actually built some terrace properties. They're generating hydrogen, pushing it through a network and understanding how it behaves in the home. So those hydrogen-ready boilers should be coming to market very soon, and we're quite keen to see the government mandating that, you know, as boilers get fitted either new or replaced, that they are hydrogen-ready, certainly within 5 years. Will it be more expensive? I think that's the other part of the puzzle, really. You know, there's a whole market to be created here on people generating the hydrogen, on how it gets stored and moved around the network and put into our network. I think the initial bits be around industrial clusters. So certainly some plans for sort of Pembrokeshire, across South Wales, sort of Port Talbot, Cardiff, but also Holyhead, Anglesey as well. So those will be the trial things. But yeah, certainly cost needs to be similar to methane, otherwise people will move away from it. So a whole number of challenges, puzzles, safety cases to be overcome before we get there, but it is moving very fast at the moment.
Thanks, Nigel. Just one more, hopefully quite quick one. So Wayne Hughes has asked, are there any case studies showing the value of the PSR?
I can certainly share some stuff through the NEA. We've got lots of case studies in terms of how we support customers during our normal works, whether that be through gas incidents or through our planned work. But yeah, I can certainly pull some stuff together there. And it certainly helps us to look at demographics of an area to understand where best we can target our programs of work. So things like the Healthy Homes, Healthy People, by bringing in not just the PSR, but other demographics about people who live in that area, combining that with the energy efficiency of the homes, has really allowed us to target our works into areas. And quite often it's a surprise to the local authority. You know, in Cardiff, for example, they're very aware of sort of Ely and Trowbridge, etc. But when Jonathan Coulson showed them plans of Cardiff and showed them sort of Nishan and Llandaff North, it was areas they'd never really considered that needed support. So we focused our efforts there and, you know, helped a good few hundred homes over a few months make a real difference to their lives.
Thanks, Nigel. I think it's probably time to move on, Ben, is it? But that was really helpful.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Enjoy.
I'm on mute, of course I am. Thank you very much, Nigel. That's fantastic. Thank you. And there was one additional question, Nigel, that's just been popped into the chat by Tracy Norris, although I know Tracy and I don't think that was Tracy Norris. I think it may be somebody else with the same name. But if you don't mind, maybe just taking a look at that one for them, if that's okay. And we'll move forward. Definitely significant challenges in respect to decarbonisation is something that we're really keen to look at. And of course, whatever pathways are chosen, improving the energy efficiency of homes is of absolute central importance, and there's a real opportunity there as well to obviously tackle fuel poverty as we go about that. And speaking of challenges, I have the pleasure of handing over now to Fleer Lawton from Smart Energy GB. She's the head of public affairs there, to talk about the smart meter rollout in terms of where it's got to and some of the latest kind of challenges and hurdles that have been overcome and where that rollout is now, as well as some of Smart Energy GB's current campaign and communities programme. So Fleer, with pleasure, over to you.
Thanks, Ben. Good afternoon, everybody. As Ben just said, I'm Fleer. I head up the public affairs work for Smart Energy GB. I'm just going to try sharing my screen. Let's see if this works for me. Can I get a thumbs up? Does that look okay? Yeah, all good. Excellent, thank you. So as Ben mentioned, I'm going to give you a bit of a progress update on the smart meter rollout, a bit of a chat around the sort of policy landscape for the rollout as well, and an update on our campaign and our partnership activity as well. I'll leave some time at the end for questions so we can cover off anything that anybody's got as well. I'm assuming that most people are aware of Smart Energy GB and what we do, but if you don't know, we're the national consumer campaign on behalf of the smart meter rollout. If you remember the digital TV rollout and the sort of advertising, the marketing campaign that went around that, we do a similar thing, but for smart meters. Our core roles and responsibilities are outlined on this slide. We don't manufacture or install meters. Instead, we're tasked with raising awareness of the benefits of smart meters and encouraging people to accept an installation when they're offered one by their energy supplier. We're also tasked with helping people to use their smart meter as well now, especially now as more and more people are getting smart meters. Our focus is turning to actually how we encourage them to look at their energy behaviours and understand how to use, or when to use less or more energy, and how to use it sensibly as well. And one of our key roles is also to support those who may be on a low income or who are in vulnerable circumstances as well, and making sure that they're accessing the benefits of smart meters. And we do that mainly through our partnerships programme, which I will talk a bit more about later on as well. From our campaign point of view, we've been focused primarily on domestic customers for the last 6 or 7 years. But last year, we also extended our campaign to include small businesses as well. And that can include things like small charities or community centres and their energy supply. So in terms of where we are with the smart meter rollout, it is a massive, unprecedented infrastructure project, which once it's complete, we'll see about 52 million smart meters installed in homes across Great Britain, and as well as sort of 4 million small businesses as well. Where we're at the minute is there are more than 23 million smart meters installed across Great Britain. And in Wales, nearly half, so 49% of Welsh households have had a smart meter installed. And that's absolutely on a par with the rest of GB, which is really good news. At Smart Energy GB, we undertake a big study of over 10,000 people twice a year to ask people's views on energy and on smart meters, and that helps us in terms of where we direct our campaigns and the activity that we do as well. We know from this study for those people left to get a smart meter that 39% of those in Wales are looking to seek and accept a smart meter within the next 6 months. That's a good figure. That's gone up over the last few years. That's really good to see. People do want to get smart meters in. We also know that about 97% of people are aware of smart meters, and that's pretty much universal now in terms of awareness. And about 3/4 of people with a smart meter have a better idea of their energy costs as well. So the visibility that a smart meter brings people is helping them to understand their costs. And finally, about 60%, so 6 in 10 smart meter owners would recommend them to others as well. So in terms of why we talk about smart meters, what the benefits are, essentially, smart meters are digital gas and electricity meters. They send your meter readings straight to your supplier. So from a personal point of view, what that means is an end to estimated billing. You get an accurate bill from your supplier. You also, as a domestic customer, get a small screen, the in-home display, that brings your energy to life, really. It makes it visible. You can see actually how much you're paying, and you can understand that in sort of near real time as well. From a prepayment meter perspective as well, the benefits of prepayment smart meters are very much here and now, being able to top up remotely, conveniently from home. So you can use your phone, you can use the internet and so on, or still go to the shop to top up your meter. And that top up is instantly on your meter rather than having to clamber to your prepayment meter and stick a token in. It's instantly there. Particularly, we saw the benefits of this, particularly during lockdown or during bad weather as well, where people weren't able or didn't want to leave their homes. So that convenience has been a real plus in terms of prepayment. We're doing some excellent research at the minute with NEA around the benefits of smart prepayment meters. So we're hoping to be able to bring you more of that in the near future as well. From sort of broader than environmental benefits, smart meters are an essential upgrade to our national energy system. essentially they generate data. That's what they do. They take your meter readings, they understand how much energy you're using. And thanks to that data, they're helping to digitize the energy system and upgrade it into one which can be more flexible and better sort of able to even out peaks and troughs in our energy use and integrate and make the most of renewable sources of energy as well. Finally, is then the data, again, that smart meters provide are helping to create a platform which innovative new sort of products and services can be based as well. So that can be looking at whether it's tailored energy advice, whether it's smart home services, or even supporting our health and care system. There are lots of things coming out there, lots of ways of looking at doing things differently coming forward as well. So there are obviously lots of positives around the rollout, but there have been a lot of challenges. There's no point trying to run away from that. There have been a lot of challenges. It is a massive programme. It is trying to fit smart meters into every home in Great Britain. And as you'll know, as much as most, housing stock in Great Britain is old and it's varied. There are lots of problems that installers encounter when they go and fit smart meters, and they have to be overcome. And there are teams, across industry, government and consumer groups working on some of those issues to make sure that installations can happen as much as possible. The other issues which have been well documented sort of in the press and in the media is around SMETS 1 and SMETS 2 meters. SMETS are the technical specifications for smart meters. SMETS 1 was the first generation, SMETS 2 are the second generation. Pretty much now energy suppliers are only installing SMETS 2 meters where possible. And first generation meters, so SMETS 1 meters are now being migrated onto the system. So originally, when SMETS 1 meters were installed, they would talk directly to your energy supplier. So then when people came to switch energy suppliers, they could switch, absolutely, you still can switch with a SMETS 1 meter, but you might lose some of your smart functionality. So you might not be able to see all of the data and it might not be able to talk to your new supplier. So it would operate as a traditional meter. SMETS 2 meters, on the other hand, talk via a secure data communications network. That network talks to all suppliers, they're all part of that network, so you can switch seamlessly between different suppliers. For those of us on SMETS 1 meters, like myself, who've switched and maybe don't have their smart functionality, those meters are being migrated onto this new network. It's an over-the-air upgrade. It isn't something where they have to come and replace a meter. It's being done automatically. Mine has already started to go. I can now see my electricity back on there. My dad the other day got a letter from his new supplier telling him that his has been shifted across as well. So that is absolutely happening. And we're seeing those figures coming through now as well. So we've got about 11.7 million smart meters who are connected to this national data network. Of that, over 7.6 million are SMETS 2 meters, and we've got about 4.1 million SMETS 1 meters being migrated, and that figure is increasing every day. We're seeing those really increasing in terms of the number of meters, as I say, being moved across to the system, which is really good news because people were frustrated, understandably so, on losing their smart functionality because actually they really like it. Citizens Advice have been working as well on an interoperability checker. So if you are interested in terms of seeing when your meter will be moved across, or if it's already been moved across to the new network, they will have a checker in place to do that. It was supposed to have been launched last week. I couldn't find it when I Googled earlier, but once I find the link, I will send it out through NEA as well. So in terms of sort of how we got to where we are, so when the smart meter rollout was set up, there was an original policy framework that was set up in 2012 that basically said what was supposed to happen in terms of the rollout. That was due to run until the end of 2020, but that was actually extended to mid-2021 because of the pandemic that we've all been struggling under. So that policy framework had a number, or has a number of requirements. Basically, energy suppliers are obliged to take all reasonable steps to offer all of their customers a smart meter installation by the end now of June 2021. Large suppliers have got sort of annual milestones in place to drive the rollout from their side as well. And in June 2019, the new and replacement obligation also came into effect. That basically required energy suppliers to take all reasonable steps again to install smart meters for all new connections and replacement meters at domestic and non-domestic premises. As we said, the rollout faced a number of challenges, and it became very clear sort of around 2018, 2019, that it was not going to be possible to meet this original deadline. Also, we had the situation where the energy market itself had changed substantially since 2012. You know, we'd gone from sort of a big 6 set of suppliers to many, many more companies in the market, as well as the introduction of the price cap as well. So really seeing a flux in the energy market. So as a result of that, in 2019, the UK government consulted on the next policy framework and what that should look like for the rollout in order to drive it and to make sure that it got completed. And this new framework will take us through now to mid-2025. It's due to be introduced in beginning of July 2021, so a couple of months away now. And what the government have proposed is that individual obligations for energy suppliers should be set absolutely on a trajectory for 100% coverage, subject to an annual tolerance level. So each energy supplier basically has a minimum number of installations that they have to meet in any year of this new framework. There's a consultation going on right now that looking at the tolerance levels for the first 2 years of that framework. So looking at the targets for energy suppliers and the tolerance levels around that, and they will be confirmed before we start on the 1st of July. They'll go into effect on the 1st of July. The government have then proposed a midpoint review sometime between July 2022 and 2023. And following that, then there'll be targets for energy suppliers for the 3rd and 4th years of the framework, and they'll be consulted on again following the conclusion of that review. The new framework also recognises the importance of consumer engagement. So Smart Energy GB's activity is continuing, and our objectives have been modified slightly to make sure that our activity and our campaign remain relevant for the next phase of the rollout as well. We'll be carrying on with building consumer acceptance and demand for smart metering amongst both sort of domestic and non-domestic audiences. And also, as I said, looking at sort of appropriate behaviour change in the next phase of the programme as well, and also supporting consumers in vulnerable circumstances to access the full benefits of smart meters. So in terms of our campaign, when I started 6 or so years ago, and people didn't really know what a smart meter was at all then. When I told people I was doing smart metering, they kind of looked at me blankly. So we started our campaign very much with an introduction to smart metering, making sure that people understood what was happening. That then evolved far more, rather than talking about personal benefits, to talk more about the environmental and the system benefits. Finally, now moving to our latest campaign, which you may have seen on TV already, which involves Einstein, which is a sort of multi-message campaign, which is designed to appeal to as many people as possible. And we're sort of launching a series of short videos, doing a lot of social activity around this, supported by print adverts as well, very much communicating the benefits of smart meters. So talking about how they help you to better manage your energy use, how they support Britain in reaching the net zero targets, helping the energy system to use more renewable energy, and also helping the energy system to adapt to modern technologies such as EVs. We're also developing Einstein at the minute, and we're looking at sort of more content to roll out throughout the year, and that'll include some activity focused around prepayment meters as well in the autumn. As I said, though, we can't do this alone, and in particular, the work that we do in supporting consumers in vulnerable circumstances. We deliver sort of this aspect of our work through partnerships, trusted partnerships that communities know they can rely on and work with as well. And our In Communities programme we run in conjunction with NEA. And through that, we award grants to organisations across Great Britain to reach specific audiences. And this year, we're working with about 25 regional partners as part of that programme. And they're targeting audience who are on a low income, or audiences who are offline, or a combination of the two of those, so low income and offline as well. And of the 25 projects that we're partnering with, we're working with 4 Welsh-based organisations, so Care and Repair Cymru, Com Arian, Groundwork North Wales and Cardiff City Council. And they'll be looking at engaging local audiences with the smart meter rollout and running a lot of range of different activities. So there's a lot of things that are being designed. Obviously, COVID has influenced sort of how these activities take place. So they're looking at COVID compliant activities. So it could be sort of locally targeted advertising or newsletter content, phone advice, and face-to-face events again, where possible. Finally, then we've got our resource centre. So we're tasked with engaging everyone with the rollout to try and make, and so we try and make our resources as accessible as possible. We've recently updated the resource centre. So there's all sorts of different languages that cover different formats as well. All the resources are free to download and use. So please have a look and go and use those. Thank you for listening. If anyone's interested in more information, then please get in touch, and more than happy to chat through.
Thanks, Fleur. So a few questions. There's a bit of debate in the chat about the extent that smart meters can drive behaviour change. Gwan has asked, what is known about how people actually use smart meters to change their energy use behaviours? So how do you stop the in-home display just sort of sitting on someone's dining room table and not necessarily being used? Is there anything you'd like to sort of pick up on around the sort of behaviour change message?
Yeah, absolutely. So it is one that we are looking at now, and we're looking at the sort of research on it, but through our Outlook study, as I said. So we talk to over 10,000 people twice a year around that. And through that, we ask them to identify whether or not having a smart meter has changed their behaviours. And if so, what have they done around that? I think you're right. I think there is still a real need in terms of getting people to understand actually how to use their IHD, what they're seeing from that as well, and to have that discussion with them. There's a lot. Behavior change is a really difficult thing to do, and it's all very well, you know, it's easier for people to change attitudes and to want to do things than to actually do things. And a lot of what we see coming through our studies is that people do relatively simple things that they can do. So it is around changing light bulbs and sort of smaller activities. When it comes to larger things, when Nigel was talking about, you know, heat pumps and things like that, if we are truly looking at decarbonising our energy system in the future, that as you know, as a project is going to be a massive behaviour change project, and getting people to do that, I think, will be a big old behaviour change campaign. And if we think the smart meter rollout is difficult in terms of encouraging people to use smart meters, getting them to change to heat pumps and things, I think is going to be a real task. So we need the learning from projects such as this to help feed into that as well.
Thank you. I think there's a couple of questions that are related to issue around storage heating as well. So I think it looks like Dan has said smart meters for E7 customers is important, as I believe the tele switching signal embedded in Radio 4 LW is due to come to an end in the next couple of years, unless it's extended again as it has been before. Is there anything around that particular issue you'd like to pick up on?
Yeah, my understanding is now the technology for Economy 7 and Economy 10 is now in place. There are lots of different, as I say, lots of different projects looking at the sort of technical specifications around smart metering and different areas. But I think my understanding is that suppliers are starting to roll out smart meters now for E10 and E7. So hopefully that overcomes that. There are still sort of developments going on around areas, particularly sort of high-rise blocks as well. So where you have a lot of meters in the basement of maybe a high-rise block and actually flats obviously going up there, getting those meters to talk to the IHD, to the little screen in the home, can be a bit of a challenge. So there is an Alt-HAN project, it's called, actually looking at that and how that technical capability is put in place as well. So there are lots of developments around this. There are lots of different projects ongoing, as I say, amongst industry, government and consumer action groups as well, looking at these different areas.
Okay, I think perhaps one more, if that's okay, Ben. So William Jones has asked, in rural areas, people may not have the mobile signal needed for a smart meter. What further steps are being taken to resolve this issue, putting people living in a rural community at a disadvantage?
So the smart meter network doesn't necessarily run on mobile phone signals. So it would have done in the original, in the SMETS 1, the SMETS 2. So the network itself should cover 99.25% of the population. That does mean there will still be gaps, and it is an area, again, that's being looked at. I don't have much to update on what more is being done. They are looking at sort of how they bounce signals around and strengthen signals for different areas. But there will be that small percentage. So that is being looked at in terms of what's happening, but I haven't got an update in terms of exactly what's happening.
Oh, thank you so much, Leah. That's really, really helpful. And I think all of that discussion really goes to show and demonstrate just how important community engagement is right from the word go. And whether we're talking about smart meter rollout or we're talking about the future of the way we heat in our homes and buy energy in the future, just right from the beginning through to long after those measures have been installed, it just shows how important that advice and support and protection is. So thank you very, very much for that. And without further ado, I'd like to hand over now to Joe Seymour and Mayor Thomas, who are going to talk a little bit about the Energy Advice and Support Services pilot that is currently underway via the Welsh Government, including some of its aims and objectives and the support that's available and how you or your service users can get involved. So Joe, over to you.
Thank you very much. Yes. Thanks very much for the invite today about the Welsh Government Energy Advice Pilot. And as Ben says, we'll be doing this as a double act. As many of you probably know, I can talk for a while about work that we do, and obviously I've got a big passion about providing support to vulnerable people. So obviously we'll cover as much as I can about what we're doing, but if anyone has got any questions, we've got time at the end, but any more questions than that, I'm happy for anyone to get in contact with me via email. So, as was already sort of said by Ben previously, the Welsh Government Warm Homes Programme, Nest and Our Bed, there is a provision for energy advice over the phone. And obviously the Welsh Government were interested in looking at the benefits of having a separate service. So just before Christmas, they went out to identify organisations that can provide support through the pilot. And obviously we were successful in coming together with a number of partners to provide this energy advice pilot. So as you can see, the pilot was looking at covering 3 areas. So we've got Gwynedd, Caerphilly and Ceredigion. And within our sort of outline, what we said we were going to do was target 210 residents. And obviously these residents are from a mix of different cohorts. Obviously there is a level of vulnerability. There's also the difference between the tenure to do with the location, would not be on gas or off gas. So we wanted to make sure that there was a good mix. And what we wanted to be able to do is to bring together our sort of healthy homes, healthy people model and also the well-being element of it. Obviously, we know there is a number of partners out there all listening today that provide energy advice, and we wanted to be able to bring the best of that together as well as looking at the well-being. We utilise Elemental social prescribing software and Google Forms. The pilot started at the end of January. It went live properly at the beginning of March. Interim report was submitted on Friday. We're looking to complete delivery by the end of August and then provide a final report by the end of September. So the aims of the project, I'm not going to go through all of them, and obviously the presentation will be handed out to everybody, so you'll be able to see it in more detail. But what we're looking at doing is to test and measure the effectiveness of providing in-home energy advice. We are looking at testing the benefits and the impact of each intervention that is provided. And we're looking to determine the benefits which can be gained from supporting vulnerable households. So as you'll see at the beginning, it says in-home, and we all know currently we're not able to do the in-home element of it. So the in-home is more detailed telephone conversations. There are some delivery partners within this that are able to do garden visits, and also obviously now with the opening of some community centres and things, that we are able to see people more face-to-face in a safe environment. And again, looking at the objectives, we are looking at providing support to those in fuel poverty or at risk of fuel poverty, enabling them to reduce their energy consumption whilst maintaining satisfactory heating. We're looking at them trying to provide support to switch their energy tariff, improve income maximisation, looking at digital metering, domestic prepayment meters, and trying to obviously lower the cost looking at making sure people are aware that there are different ways of being able to pay for their gas and electric, but we do know some people like paying by prepayment meters because it helps them budget, looking at installing home energy efficiency measures, and also providing that in-depth support on managing fuel debt. So you'll see on the screen, there are a lot of people that are involved in this consortium. We're very, very lucky and wanted to make sure that we brought together experience from each of the 3 areas that we provided this pilot in. And, you know, we're very lucky that we've got that mix of local authority, third sector organisation, citizens advice, you know, to make sure that we had the awareness of the community, which obviously Mayor will talk about afterwards. So again, you can see that obviously we have a split in each area of referral and delivery partners, again, to get that good understanding. And as part of this pilot, we've there's an inclusion of an independent evaluation, which is being carried out by Wrexham Glyndŵr University. So we're obviously making sure that we can really see the impact of the support that is being provided. Okay, so what are we actually going to be doing as part of this pilot? Again, you'll see on the screen, we have an initial survey form which is completed for all residents that want to be able to take part within this pilot, just to confirm, number one, that they actually meet the criteria, that they're from the, you know, sort of the right cohort groups, but also they want to be able to take part in the evaluation as well. We then carry out baseline, so we look at people's well-being and anxiety scores, as well as collecting information on people's behaviour change and awareness. So again, we were looking at things to do with carbon monoxide, smart meters, energy efficiency and switching. We then move on to provide that support. So we're looking at income maximisation and savings, energy efficiency and installing measures, health and wellbeing outcomes. So once all of that's done, we then re-look at people's improved personal wellbeing and anxiety, and also hopefully that there'll be an improvement from an awareness and behaviour change point of view. So everything that we were talking about before, hopefully we're trying to look at within this pilot. Once all of that's been done, support's been provided, hopefully then switched, if there's been some savings in their income, we then look at getting some feedback. And this is sort of smaller scale feedback from every single resident that we provide support to. And again, I'm not going to go through this when you get a copy of the presentation, but it just shows you the journey on the referral process, you know, some sort of what sort of support that's been provided to the residents. So what I'll do now is I'll hand over to May, and he's going to talk more about the types of support and the intervention that's being provided from a delivery point of view, but also the importance of looking at working with the community.
Thanks, Joe. Maybe the first thing to say is you know, we've been a little bit guilty within this sector, ourselves definitely, of operating in silos, you know, where we've been tackling our own little patch and ploughing our own furrow. So it's been great, really, to begin cooperating at last, you know. I'm not going to mention the history of the DEWERD as an organisation. There's our website, you can find that information there. But the main thing that we've got, you know, our main asset really is that we're slap bang in the middle of the community, where I'm right opposite the main supermarket here in the town of Blaenau-Ffestiniog, and people are familiar with this. We've been here, well, basically since Communities First was in existence in Blaenau, so we've been here quite a while now. There's a load of acronyms here, but some of you may be familiar with these different things, well, discounts, council tax reduction, all these various interventions that we can do. But I think what we do differently here is that we will handhold, you know, quite often with stuff that's in existence already, like Nest and Arbed, just actually getting the stuff together to qualify for one of those schemes requires a bit of admin work. So we'll help with that. We've got equipment here that people can use to access the internet or just using a phone, you know, really basic stuff. And that's what community organisations can provide, possibly different, you know, to something more centralised. Do you want to switch to the slide, Joe? So just some notes really on how we do this. So as I said, we've been doing this for almost 10 years now, and it's we're reacting to what people need. So people come in with a problem, and we look at it from that perspective, rather than trying to sell something specific and trying to make people fit a box. What's very important to consider as well with the growth of eco, that people are often bamboozled by all the stuff that's out there. There's so much stuff on social media coming up, that the various ways you could qualify for eco. So we try and help people gather their thoughts with that stuff. We can hook people in. We're still doing a light bulb swap scheme, 10 years down the line. So we're still drawing people in that way. And we're also the main referral point for the food bank in Blaenau. So we know that we're targeting the right people here, people's knowledge is still sparse in this whole sector. I'm still getting tenants from RSLs who've never had a look at their EPC, who've never seen the actual document. So we're helping people understand a bit more about their situation, and helping people, advocating and supporting people to ask questions as well. It was an important part of the work. And as I mentioned earlier, helping people get the stuff ready to apply for what's already out there is a big part of the work. Handing somebody a flyer for Nest or Arbed is one thing, but just briefly, for example, I've had two bereaved ladies, that I've assisted with the Nest application, that weren't happy to do the phone call. The home energy check questionnaire is quite a bit of work to get your head around. So we can support on that level, which I think is very important. Shall I let you carry on, Jo?
Cool. Cheers, thank you for that. So I wanted, as in sort of you to hear, obviously the importance of making sure that we're working in partnership with those organisations that are really at the heart of the community. So obviously with regards to making sure that we're spreading the message, we have designed some leaflets which outline obviously what it is, what's on offer as part of the pilot. We've also put together a flyer that actually outlines the evaluation, what it's like to be part of the evaluation, who will be carrying out the evaluation, so that people know exactly who's taking part within this pilot. And then just really quickly, just go through obviously what data we've collected and how we're collecting this data. So like I said before, our initial referral process is using Google Forms. So we can collect our initial data that way. And then obviously to do with the actual case management and obviously being able to record interventions and signposting, and then being able to provide reports, is then all carried out via Elemental. So on the screen, you will see just some examples of what sort of data we're collecting from an Elemental point of view. Currently received 128 referrals, and you can see sort of an outline of the different cohorts, as in sort of the good mix of South Wales, North Wales, Mid Wales, rural, urban, on gas, off gas. So obviously we'll be able to collect all of that data so that we can then show the mix of people that are part of the pilot. And again, on the screen, it just shows you a brief outline of the types of interventions and support that is being provided, obviously under the main headings of home safety, income max, and affordable warmth and basic needs. It then breaks it down to priority services register, benefit advice, tariff advice, water support, and then breaks it down even further to do with what type of actual support. We've got individual E.ON, British Gas, Utilita, warm homes discounts, so we can really get down to the nitty-gritty of what support is being provided to each resident. And something else that we were key to make sure that we wanted to record is that we've got the wellbeing side of it and also the saving and measure side of it. So the Warm Wales survey on Elemental helps us record the actual income, gas bill costs, the usage before and after the support which is being provided, and then we can actually see the monetary benefits as well as the health and well-being impacts. which is what we've got on the screen here. So ONS4 is personal wellbeing. And the reason why we use this score is ONS4, Office of National Statistics. So this is something that's collected anyway. So we've got a good comparison between the national average and obviously the average for the pilot. And what we're looking at is active measures of well-being. So this is looking at happiness and anxiety, which is reflecting our day-to-day emotions. And we're then looking at people's well-being, showing their life satisfaction and feeling of things that are done in life which are worthwhile. Obviously, it sounds a little bit heavy, but these ONS4 questions are better than some of the SWEM-web questions, and we still get a good reflection of how people are feeling from a well-being point of view. And then just quickly, this is just looking at the initial Google data that we can get. So again, it's a quick breakdown, just looking at where we're getting those referrals from. We've got a good indication of what tenure. So again, we're making sure that we've got a mix of local authority, housing association, owner occupied and private rented. And again, we're able to collect basic information on what their main fuel type is, what their current spend is on their energy bills, and obviously what their household annual income is. And obviously this gives us an indication of fuel poverty levels. So it's just an indication of obviously whether or not they are at risk in severe or whether or not, some sort of they're in fuel poverty. And then just to finish off, obviously, we are working in partnership with a number of partners that I've already gone through, but if you are interested, you do know of somebody in those 3 particular areas that would benefit from this pilot, the link is on the screen. Obviously, if you've got any questions with regards to whether or not you can put somebody through, you can just get in contact with myself. I'll put my email address in the chat box. Okay, thank you very much. Has anyone got any questions?
Can't spot any questions. Has anybody got anything they want to drop in the chat or raise a hand?
In the meantime, Joe, I'll ask you one whilst we wait to see. Are there any particular kind of emerging trends that you've seen? Because I noticed when you were talking about the ONS4 figures as an example, looking at anxiety and levels of life satisfaction and so on. Obviously, the average kind of score compared to what I understood it to be like the starting score was obviously, much lower, unfortunately, as you would expect for people kind of obviously struggling with these issues, or higher in respect of their anxiety levels. But have you kind of got enough way through at the moment to kind of see what kind of impact then the advice and the support that you're providing goes on to have in that respect, or is that something that will kind of feature down the line when we're a bit further into the project?
Yeah, I think it's something that's going to, as in feed in, as in towards the end of the project. Obviously, what we're making sure is, we are getting more context to the scoring, because obviously they give a score, and obviously we want to know why, and also being able to identify whether or not it is just that they're just impacted and their anxiety levels are quite high, or whether or not actually there's an impact from COVID as well, so that we can actually factor that into it. Because obviously, we do need to take that into account, as in when we are speaking, as in sort of speaking to the residents. But I do, as in sort of think that once they've got in contact, as in sort of with the, as in guys that are providing the support, anxiety levels are reduced, as in sort of more quickly, because they know somebody's listening. And that's the whole point of what we're trying to do, is we are looking at that bigger picture. And we know, especially at the moment, a lot more people have got a lot more things going on. And also it's impacting more people than it probably would be. So, maybe we are providing support to those individuals that we might not have been providing support to a couple of years ago.
Thank you. A couple of questions in the meantime have come through the chat. So between Sarah and I, we'll have a look at those. And I think William's also raised his hand. You have to forgive me, I don't know what came first. So I'll pass first to Julia Folland, who's first in the chat, who asked if you ever consider delaying the pilot so that you could actually go into people's homes to do the work and then evaluate. This is a question probably as much for you as it is for Steve, but go for it. Are you able to answer?
Yeah. No, I am. And actually, it is, as in quite a few people have actually asked that. And what I... yes and no, I can say, as into that. But when we actually look at what support, as in we're providing, and what we have found is some people actually like support to be provided over the phone, because we found that quite a few people are opening up more. Yes, telephone conversations do take longer, and you might have to make multiple telephone conversations, but some people actually like that. They like being able to open up over the phone and not necessarily need to do the face-to-face. But on the other hand, one of the cases that William was actually providing support on, it was identified that actually for these residents to benefit to the fullest, they did need to see somebody face to face. So I do think actually we can, as in sort of put this, as in sort of forward and actually look at, when we do the evaluation, we can look at the pros and cons of doing over the phone more in-depth support, and also looking at doing in-home, in garden, in community centre type support, that we can pull that out with the evaluation. So I think that we can actually make this, as in sort of quite a good, as in sort of all round pilot and evaluation.
Fab, thanks, Joe. Just a couple more. So we've got Paul, William and Sasha. So Paul, and then I'll go to William as I promised. Mentions Paul Cowley. Have you been able to get decent billing and spend data directly from the households? And does the client complete this form themselves, or is that captured by the partners?
So the actual information, so the initial form, we ask, as in sort of the resident to be able to fill that in. Obviously, once then it goes through to the delivery partners to provide that, more detailed support. They actually then look at a more detailed, as in sort of spend and also usage element of it from a before and after point of view.
And are you able to complete the feedback loop in answer to kind of Sasha Williams's question about if somebody refers into the scheme, then to kind of let them know afterwards the impact that has made to that particular householder?
Yes, so obviously to do with the actual referral. So our referral partners and delivery partners are sort of, as in a bit of both. So, as in we are kept within, obviously if we get a referral partner that is outside of, which again we might do, as a result of this, as in we can make sure that people are kept up to date with regards to what support can be provided.
Fantastic, thank you. And William.
Hi. With regards to your initial question, Ben, about if there's any themes seen so far, because we are one of the delivery partners, and one of the themes that I've seen in the work that I've done sort of relates back to Fleur's presentation and work with smart meters as well, because one of the questions in the baseline survey is about smart meters, and obviously one of the sort of objectives of the pilot is to promote the use of smart meters as well. So what I just wanted to say was there seems to be quite a lot of strong feeling. So you'd have lots of people who are really, really anti smart meters who will say, I'm never having one, really, really firmly. And then you've got, as a kind of indicator from the question I asked earlier on to Fleur in the chat, you get quite a lot of people who are really keen to have smart meters, who think they'll be extremely useful for them, but have had previous experiences where they've been told because of where they live, they've not been able to have a smart meter installed, including actual visits to the property, where then they weren't able to put one in because of the issue. Then presumably they were trying to put in a SMET 1 meter rather than the SMET 2 meter. But those are some of the, that's just thought I'd mention that because of Fleur's presentation earlier. Cheers.
No, that's really helpful. Thank you, William. Yeah, no, that again serves to highlight both the importance of the community engagement and advice and support, so people know what the offer is and when it's available, and how to best make use and benefit from them, as much as it does also the importance of the actual journey for the installation and the contact you have with suppliers in that process as well. And as Fleur did mention, with NEA, we're currently researching some of the potential benefits, but also some of the barriers that people have faced on prepayment meters in order to try to get a smart meter, and some of the benefits that they might then access if they were to be on smart prepay going forward, and what potential interventions could be employed to support that and push the rollout forward as well. So when we have more news about that and that's released, then no doubt we'll share that with you all as well. I think that's all we've got time for Joe and May, but thank you so much for that presentation as always. And just in answer to one of the other questions in the chat, I'm absolutely certain Joe would be happy to share her details, and if they're not already on the slide, I'm sure she'll be able to take that offline as well. So thanks again, Joe. And from one Joe to another, just welcome Joe Harry, the project manager at Care and Repair Cymru, who's kindly going to talk to us a little bit about their new 70 plus Cymru project, which, as I understand it, is particularly aiming to work with 70 people of older age, over 70, looking to see if they can get them to an affordable warmth that's kind of 70 plus Fahrenheit or 21 degrees centigrade. But I've probably butchered that, Joe, so I'll pass straight to you without waffling any further.
Hello, you did a really good job of that, thank you. Let's just see if I can get this going. Can everyone see a slideshow and a reasonably blank slide? Yeah, okay. So hello everybody, and a really special hello to all the Tracy Norrises in the room, because that's just been absolutely brilliant. Yeah, and to my team who are here, really nice to see you. And so I'm Jo Harry and I work for Care and Repair Cymru. I'm project manager of our 70 Plus Cymru project, which is funded by Energy Redress. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the project today. I'm also going to tell you about the care and repair movement in Wales, because we got a little shout out earlier as partners on other projects, and that always gets me quite excited, which is nice. But I am aware as well that lots of people are not really aware what we do, so I'll give some information on that. And I'm going to turn my camera off if you don't mind. There we are, while I'm doing the presentation. And now I can't go to the next slide. Hey, there we go. So Care and Repair Cymru, we are Wales's older persons housing champion. We represent 13 independent agencies across Wales. Everything that every person who works within Care and Repair, within the movement, everything everyone does is completely focused on improving the lives of older people in Wales, our clients. To give you an idea, last year the Care and Repair movement supported over 47,000 people across Wales. That's 47,000 older people. And to give you an idea of our client group, a third of our clients live alone, a third have a disability, and 2/3 are over 74 years of age. Part of the reason why our project is called 70 Plus. So each agency runs a number of teams. Each agency across Wales has a team of caseworkers, technical officers, practical services, and specialist caseworkers. For example, we've got 2 specialist projects, Managing Better, which supports older people with hearing loss, sight impairments, people who've suffered a stroke, people living with Alzheimer's, and we partner with other organisations to deliver that service. We've also got a project called Hospital to Healthy Homes, which supports older people who've spent some time in hospital to move back to safe homes. That's Care and Repair. And 70 Plus is a project run from Care and Repair Cymru, but we're delivering across Wales. So I'm going to tell you more about the project. I have to thank my colleague Faye Patton. I'm going to be providing lots of statistics. There are no references here, but feel free to email me and ask for them. And thank you, Faye, for helping me put this together. So as I've said, we work with older owner-occupiers and private tenants who may be in fuel poverty or at risk of fuel poverty. But that age is not exclusive. We will work with any older person in need. Our average age of client is 74, as I've said, but we won't exclude on the basis of age. Lots of people come to us via our care and repair agencies and projects. Through partners, community groups. We're really happy for people to self-refer onto 70 Plus as well. What we want to do is tackle the same thing that everybody in this room wants to do, is tackle fuel poverty. Fuel poverty can be fatal to people who are already vulnerable. It's really serious, and obviously our cohorts of people are older people. So we know that there's a direct link between cold temperatures and poorer health. So Public Health Wales has reported on the fact that obviously the colder the temperature, the more time people spend indoors. The more time that people spend indoors, the less physical activity they undertake. And as a result of that, we see in Wales an increased incidence of unintentional injuries in the home. We know that over 75% of excess winter deaths in Wales occur in people aged 75 and above. And a massive 30% of that figure, so 30% of excess deaths in winter in Wales, are attributed directly to a cold home. We know that dementia and illnesses associated with falls, like arthritis, osteoarthritis, and then respiratory conditions, respiratory illnesses, they're all exacerbated by cold temperatures. We know that 19% of pensioners are living in poverty in Wales. And on top of that, we also know that 1 in 3 older people who are eligible for pension credit don't claim it. And that's a figure from just last year. So all of that exacerbates already difficult living conditions. We know that fuel poverty in Wales is higher in rural areas than it is in urban areas, but it's still high at 10% in urban areas and 14% in rural areas. And then there are also fewer accessible services in rural areas. I know there are some amazing services in rural areas, and I've connected with quite a few of you who are at this forum today, and thank you for spending the time, and hopefully we can do it again and do more of it. But this is the difficulties that face people in rural areas. So the purpose of our project, really closely related to Joe and May's presentation then actually, we want to reduce the incidence and impact of fuel poverty amongst vulnerable older people, vulnerable older energy consumers in Wales. And as a team, what we're doing is targeting home energy advice along with technical housing solutions to people who are over 70, who are at the greatest risk from cold homes. We are carrying out face-to-face visits across Wales. Since May, all of our home energy officers have been able to carry out face-to-face visits, but the project went live the middle of February, and in the main we've been able to visit face-to-face across Wales in most instances since then. The third of our central project aims is to develop a really comprehensive base of an evidence base of the work that we do that make improvements to people's health and well-being. So the technical and practical interventions that we'll work with people to put in place, also casework and support and that kind of thing. So those are our 3 key purposes. Why private housing? We're asked that sometimes, or why solely private housing? You can see from that graph there from the Welsh Housing Conditions Survey, fuel poverty affects 20%, that's 1 in 5 of private rented households, 11% of owner occupied, all high, and 9% of social housing, still high, but obviously it shows the social responsibility that social landlords take. Wales generally has a higher proportion of owner-occupied households than the rest of the UK. It's got a lower proportion of households in social rented sector, and numbers in the private rented sector, they're not only increasing, but householders are getting older. Private rented householders are getting older. And also we've got a higher percentage of older housing stock in Wales than many parts of the UK, I should say. And what we've seen, which is really troubling, that despite all the restrictions everybody has faced over the last year, so restrictions on mobility, rental prices in Wales have increased. So the highest rental price, this is from the ONS index of private housing rental prices last year. The highest increase in rents in Wales was in July last year, but then month on month across the winter, October, November, December and January. So we are experiencing and expecting people's positions to be exacerbated by cold weather, higher rental prices and cost of living. So that's why we deliver in the private housing sector. What we deliver, there's a list there of the kind of interventions that we can make. We work closely with care and repair agencies across Wales. So with the caseworker and technical officer teams, practical services and the specialist caseworkers. We're developing our service within care and repair as a specialist energy and fuel poverty resource. Lots of our agencies over years have an amazing skill base and expertise around energy efficiency and fuel poverty, the same as existing projects in Wales. And I'm really keen to stress that we complement existing good work. We're not in competition. We're really happy to work collaboratively. We're really happy to work with organisations who've already supported clients who are older and they feel they may have got to a certain point, they can't get any further. We're really happy to work together and have some really lovely case studies where that's happened across Wales. So we advise on practical improvements and behaviour change. We can help to maximise clients' income and reduce bills. We carry out warm home assessments. We can take small energy efficiency measures, which will help to fund where we can. We work with clients to access national schemes like NEST, Discretionary Assistance Fund, and we work directly with our technical teams within care and repair agencies. All of our home energy officers are qualified to do formal domestic energy assessments too. And there's our lovely team. So clockwise from the left, we have Cam, who covers Central South Wales, Bridgend, Cwmtaf, Merthyr, Cardiff and Vale, of course. We have James, who covers Pembrokeshire, Ceredigion. I sit as the project manager across 70 plus. Wayne, who covers Western Bay, Swansea, Neathport, Talbot and Carmarthenshire. Steve covers Powys. Ree covers Blaen y Gwent, Monmouthshire and Torfaen and Newport. We're currently recruiting in North East Wales and North West Wales. And we're actually recruiting across the project at the moment. We lost our North Wales Home Energy Officer recently. She's a fantastic asset to the team. She's moved on to pastures new. Yeah, so there's our contact details. Please get in touch when this is forwarded. The story so far, we have loads of really good connections with other organisations. We found being able to work locally, so although each home energy officer covers a region, being able to work locally and attending to local needs is really similar to what May was saying actually. It makes a huge difference. Care and repair agencies as trusted agencies are able to utilise everybody who works within those agencies to deliver. Services differ. Access, public transport, even delivering quotes to people. They deliver right across regions, and so our home energy officers are delivering that local expertise. I can't remember whether I said we have a project hardship fund. So where clients are not eligible for national schemes, we can assess for eligibility for grants for up to £1,000. Yeah, and I could go on. But I won't because I'm on a time limit. I just want to reach out and say that we really want to complement existing services and are really keen to work together. We've encountered a number of challenges on the project and there are so many perfect storms for fuel poverty at the moment, which is really troubling, with the increase in rental prices, older people spending more time at home, the older housing stock in Wales, our ageing population, unregistered landlords. We've had, this is all interesting, support for tenants in rural areas working on farms, lack of low carbon options for our clients, and then of course low incomes and fuel poverty generally is what we're working to tackle and challenge. So I hope that's given you an idea of what we do on 70 plus, but please contact me or any of my colleagues if you want to know any more, and let me know if you've got any questions.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jo. That was really very helpful indeed, and actually a really nice insight actually at the end to some of those really unfortunate kind of compounding challenges that just serve to exacerbate some of these issues as well. I think one of the questions is coming from the chat, and then I think maybe I interrupted Sarah as well. So I'll just come to that one question, and then if there's any more, then Sarah, I can put those forward too. So from James Bradley, what is the criteria for the hardship fund that you mentioned, and what can it be used for?
So we administer that hardship fund within the 70 plus project, and it can be used to make homes warm and safe, basically. There is eligibility criteria connected to it, but we use it for people who aren't eligible for schemes like NEST. So for example, some people who might be just above the income threshold, or people who have savings, low savings, that either they can't access and they can't, so we use it a lot for emergency repairs. One example in West Wales, our West Wales James HEO, and I'm not sure if it was with William in Ceredigion or maybe I think Dan from Pembrokeshire, but somebody from a CAB energy scheme contacted James to say, I've got a client who is in urgent need of boiler replacement, his home's not safe. Between James and a CAB colleague, they, with the client's permission, carried out eligibility. James was able to get a plumber out to do an assessment, emergency heat and repair, and we were able to fund that through our hardship project. And direct answer, we can fund grants of up to £1,000. We do have to show that clients are not eligible for existing funds. And then that's administered through our 70+ then.
Fantastic, thank you, Jo, and some nice praise from Dan at Pem's Cab as well in the chat.
Yay.
Final question from Jo Woodward in Granwick, North Wales. Can the fund be used to access loft insulation where no other large measures are needed?
Yeah, possibly, as long as there's as long as the eligibility criteria are met. I mean, really what you'd need to do is refer that client to our local HEO. Did you say it's Jo from Granwick in North Wales?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, maybe give me a shout then, Jo, because at the moment we're hoping within a few weeks we'll have someone in place in North Wales, but we don't at the moment, but really happy to have a chat with you about it.
Fantastic. Thank you. So many Joes and so many Tracy. All right, thank you so much, Jo. That was really very helpful indeed. And for our final presentation, just before I bring everything to a close, pleasure in inviting Gareth Thomas, my colleague and the project development coordinator at NEA, who works on many of our advice related programs here, to talk a little bit about some projects and updates from NEA's side. Over to you, Gareth.
How's that? Can everybody hear me now?
We can.
Much better. Thank you, Ben. So yeah, the quote on your screen in front of you is from a Joseph Rowntree Foundation report from November last year. And that number is 700,000 people. The Bevan Foundation go on to say that 1 in 5 low-income households in Wales have cut back on food and utilities payments this past winter. And we've already heard how a combination of falling incomes and rising energy costs has meant that the pandemic has hit vulnerable low-income households the hardest. It's never been more important to ensure people in Wales have access to information, advice and support that can make a difference. And with that in mind, the arrival of a baby into a family which is already experiencing hardship can greatly increase the risk of fuel poverty, as you can probably hear from the background. From June the 1st, we're very proud to be launching a 2-year project specifically for new and expectant parents, their families, and also the organisations that support them. The project is twofold. So we'll deliver community advice sessions, providing vital information to help parents manage fuel bills and achieve affordable warmth. So NEA will also be able to draw on a small hardship fund to provide emergency grants for essentials for families where appropriate. Now, the focus from June will be online sessions. So we're very keen to hear from you if you're already working with this client group, and also if you're finding success in getting groups together online. We're very flexible with the platform we can deliver on: Zoom, Teams, Facebook Live, for example. And at the end of the slideshow, my contact details will appear, so you can get in touch and discuss the project in a little bit more depth. Also, to book sessions, there's training here available for frontline staff too, and that training will cover the key issues associated with fuel poverty, the links to and the impacts on physical and mental well-being, as well as the assistance available to households in Wales. And again, those details, my contact details, will come up at the end for you to get in touch directly, discuss possibilities of booking a session, either for group advice or for your staff teams. So on the subject of training, NEA continues to be one of the leading providers of domestic energy and fuel poverty training. That's both in a face-to-face and online setting. The existing suite of training is on your screens there and should help develop your skills in understanding the issues which impact on vulnerable and low-income households. These are all fully quality assured, and also the level 2 and 3 courses that you can see there are accredited by City and Guilds. You can visit the NEA website for details of the fully funded courses, but NEA's training team can also create bespoke courses to respond specifically to the needs that your organisation has. Any queries, contact my colleague Lindsay Thompson there. Again, details will be circulated with the slides. So just to wrap up, I mentioned community advice sessions as part of Warm Welcome, and as restrictions lift and community locations become available again, we aim to get back to deliver energy advice face-to-face. That's what we're known for predominantly in that setting, but we also continue to provide free one-to-one advice through our Warm and Safe Homes, or WASH, services. And over the past 12 months, WASH has brought warmth and comfort to more than 4,600 households across the UK. So as well as providing advice on energy efficiency, we've assisted with clearing over £140,000 in fuel debt repayments, provided over £385,000 in emergency top-up vouchers to people who are struggling to pay their energy bills, as well as facilitating over £876,000 in energy-saving measures. Our in-house income maximisation team also helped clients secure over 1.8 million in unclaimed benefits. Now, in Wales, we received referrals from over 40 organisations. Many of you are here today. I wanted to say thank you very much for your support. We're very keen to build on this, develop new partnerships to ensure our projects reach those in or at risk of fuel poverty, and also to improve awareness of the projects we've already heard from today. So it's my role to directly engage with those households and individuals and to provide the kind of advice and support you see on the screen. And the easiest way to refer into WASH services is to use an online agency referral form, which again will go out with the slides. But we also would like to encourage households to contact us directly on the free phone numbers there to speak to an advisor firsthand. And so, as promised, my contact details are on the screen. Should anyone have any questions on the projects, or if you want me to come along and talk in a little bit more depth in a team meeting, I'm more than happy, and please don't hesitate to get in touch. Diolch yn fawr iawn, and if anyone's got any questions, I believe I've got some time now to answer those.
Doesn't look as if we've got any questions, Gareth, at the moment. Oh, sorry, William Jones just come in and said, were they GB figures for gains? I think they're England and Wales, aren't they, Gareth? Or...
For ours?
Yeah, for our figures.
They were for us, for across England and Wales, yeah. Yeah, it's only me, so that would have been quite impressive. Yeah, if no one's got any questions, just please feel free to get in touch when you can. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Gareth. And as Gareth said, and as Joe, Harry, and others have said before as well, part of the key thing here is obviously to all work in partnership, as we know, and to kind of work in a very complementary way. And if we can assist in any of that way through the training or through the direct advice provision to support and raise awareness of the services that you're providing too, then please do let us know. And I hope platforms like this are very helpful for that as well. So thank you all so much for participating today. It has been genuinely lovely to have so many people here and with such a common interest, as I said at the beginning. Really looking forward personally to being able to actually do this face to face and not to have to all sit in these back bedrooms and wherever else we are based for much longer, especially when it's safe and we're able to do so. Big thanks to all of our speakers on the agenda, and to Wales and West Utilities for supporting the forum as well. As others have asked in the chat, presentations will all be made available afterwards, and colleagues will circulate a link to those via email after. One thing that we'll also include in the link is a link to our membership. NEA, as you may know, has recently launched a free supporters membership offer, which is available free of charge to local authorities, not-for-profit housing providers, charities and community groups who want to work with us but don't necessarily need to benefit from kind of discounted conference places or training places. And it will hopefully help you keep kind of better connected and informed and up to date on many kind of policy updates, event and training opportunities that are underway. We'll be restarting our Wales-wide newsletter as well this month, so look out for that. But if your organisation hasn't done so already, please then do sign up, as I say, to that free offer also. And you'll note that we too are hiring currently for a training and assessment officer, so if anybody knows anybody who might be interested in that, feel free to pass those details on. But as I say, thank you so much again. Keep warm, keep well, and we look forward to seeing you all very soon.